The 1983 season of the World Rally Championship was easily one of the most incredible in the sport's history. The Grand Tour has documented it, a movie is in production, and even people that do not follow the WRC still talk about it. But why was it so special? Well, grab some popcorn and take a seat as we discover one of the greatest rivalries in motoring history. With the hopes of giving you the best content possible, this video is in collaboration with other channels. F1 Legends, the co-editor, Rally News Plus and Sisteron from Rallymania acting as history revisers, and Jacko, the English language reviser and the plucky narrator. The Rub, the author, editor and coordinator, would like to thank all of those involved, and as always, links to all channels involved can be found in the description. The story actually begins a few years before, in 1981. In that season, Audi would debut their Quattro, which, in short, shocked the world, all as a result of a revolutionary idea: four-wheel drive as applied in a road car. While most manufacturers doubted the technology due to higher costs and more weight, this was easily overshadowed by the vastly improved grip on dirt, gravel and snow. In fact, most of the surfaces that make up the WRC calendar. Initially, Audi was met with, at best, curiosity, but mostly mockery, but after just a few rounds it was clear that four-wheel drive presented a better way to compete in rallying. Audi would go on to win 3 rounds that year, being Sweden, San Remo and the RAC, but this was just the start.
Hannu Mikkola's win with the revolutionary Audi Quattro heralds the arrival of a new era in rallying. Four-wheel drive are the keys to success.
For the 1982 season, with a world-beating supercar in their possession, Audi decided to get serious in the fight for title contention. Not only was the Quattro improved, but they also had a very strong driver lineup. Even so, Audi decides to sign on another top talent for several events, Stig Blomqvist. The lineup is now truly stellar, with the Swedish driver going alongside the legendary flying Finn Hannu Mikkola and French driver Michéle Mouton, largely regarded as one of the greatest female drivers in history. With a fight for the title now bolstered by some of the finest drivers in the sport, 1982 was easily dominated by the Audi Quattro, with it taking 7 event victories, more than every other team combined, which obviously allowed them to take their first manufacturer's title at the end of the 1982 season. With all that in mind, therefore, it would seem to be a shoo-in that Audi would go on to dominate the 1983 season as well. But with the Group B rules being newly introduced, it was clear that some new competition will be about to challenge the Germans. Still, Audi continued to revise and improve their Quattro, introducing the A1 variant for the new season, power now sitting at a comfortable 340 horsepower. However, there was a potential spanner in the works for the Germans, and its name was Lancia. Lancia were by no means new to the sport, as with models like the Fulvia and the Stratos, they won several titles in the 60s and 70s. However, unlike the Germans, who had proven the apparent superiority of four-wheel drive, the stubborn Italians decided to stick with the more traditional rear-wheel drive setup.
Il progetto 037 è stata la reazione al fatto che nel mondo dei rally era arrivata l'Audi con le 4 ruote motrici, che erano gli unici a avere le 4 ruote motrici e vincevano tutto quello che c'era da vincere, gare, campionati, appuntamenti importanti, e a quel punto lì noi non avevamo ancora la tecnologia delle 4 ruote motrici, per cui abbiamo creato una macchina molto leggera, col motore centrale, con buona visibilità, molto manovrabile, ed era la 037.
What resulted were 2 cars with 2 completely different concepts, and Lancia had another trick up its sleeve: 2-time world champion Walter Röhrl, who took the driver's title in 1980 with Fiat, and in 1982 Röhrl had put up a considerable fight against Audi with the much less competitive Opel Ascona, yet he was still able to bag himself his second driver's title. However, there was a problem. Röhrl, with 2 recent world titles under his belt, was no longer interested in taking the world title, and ended up racing just half of the events that year. And so, prospects were looking bleak. Lancia had a world-class driver on their team who only wanted to race part-time, and a car that many would describe as obsolete. Lancia, therefore, were going to have to bank on the experience of team leader Cesare Fiorio. Fiorio, who had been manager of the FIA and Lancia teams in the previous 10 years, had taken home 7 manufacturers' titles and 3 drivers' crowns. If anyone was going to give Lancia another shot, it would be him. And with all the cards laid out, the season began, with the first round, as always, in the chilly mountains of Monte Carlo, an event with tarmacked roads with some icy and snowy stretches sprinkled in, the coverage of which depends on the conditions. For Lancia, the less snow the better, considering that dry tarmac is the surface where the advantage for four-wheel drive is basically non-existent. And it was at this point that Fiorio chose to show the idea of play smarter and not harder, and trucks from Italy were brought over full of an estimated 300 tons of salt to melt as much ice on the course as possible. And Fiorio didn't stop here, as he would anonymously call the local authorities before the rally, pushing the idea that for the sake of safety, the streets had to be cleaned.
Erano le prove innevate, ce n'era una che era abbastanza innevata e su quella noi siamo andati a parlare con la polizia, abbiamo detto ma come mai non avete tolto questa neve, abbiamo rischiato di avere un incidente di sopra, fate qualche cosa al più presto possibile, ma senza dire che eravamo del team Lancia, che eravamo dei turisti che avevano rischiato la vita muovendosi su strade innevate. E loro l'hanno ripulita tutta e noi anche abbiamo passato un po' di sale e abbiamo contribuito a renderla più, diciamo, più adatta alla Lancia 037 rispetto all'Audi Quattro.
But it's still not over, and Lancia's sport director had another problem to solve. Certain parts of the stages were simply too snowed over to melt with ice in time. Plus, a lot of the stages started on dry tarmac, which would fairly quickly destroy the studded tyres before they even reached the snow. And so Fiorio played another race in the hole, something that's never been seen before in the WRC, a pit stop on the special stage itself. By changing the regular tyres out for snow tyres before a snowy stretch in under a minute, no rules were broken, and yet again Fiorio's quick thinking allowed Lancia to retain their chances. And shockingly, it worked. Lancia would take a largely unpredicted 1-2 podium finish thanks to Röhrl and Markku Alén, leaving Blomqvist's Audi in 3rd place, outpaced to the finish by 11 minutes. But obviously, one battle victory is not enough to win a war. This brought the competition to the all-snowy roads of Sweden, which this year had points valid only for the Drivers' Championship. With the addition of the salting and tyre changing tricks not working here, Lancia, foreseeing a humiliating defeat, decided to forfeit the event entirely, leading to a complete Audi dominion, conquering the top 4 positions. The third round would be the Rally of Portugal. The Italian team knew that this is a round where their driver Markku Alén would shine, as he had won several times previously here, but yet again a miracle would have to take place to allow them victory. In comparison to the 1982 running, Portugal would see a partial race surface rebalancing this year. While dirt did remain predominant, the organisers have now introduced a brand new leg entirely on tarmac, hence introducing a more balanced competition between the two rival teams, with Lancia having far more distance to build an advantage over the Quattros, or at least in theory. Due to a protest, the tarmac legs were unfortunately shortened. The rally saw both Audi and Lancia suffer from punctures, but in the end the German team confirmed their superiority, with Michéle and Mouton bringing home a 1-2 podium, Audi's second success in a row, with Röhrl being relegated to 3rd and Alén to 4th. After Portugal comes the long and exhausting safari rally in Africa, 5,000 kilometers through savannas, forests, wild animals, copious amounts of mud, and even venturing out onto the open roads, as the streets remained open during the event. And for a second time, Lancia settled on a no-show, citing the marathon of an event being too long for the relatively new 037 to survive. While it would therefore seem that this would be Audi's 3rd victory, Africa is more of a gamble than other events, with reliability being far more important than speed here. Therefore, it isn't the tech-heavy Quattro that wins, but Ari Vatanen in his unassuming Opel Ascona 400 instead. However, Mikkola and Mouton are able to walk away with second and third respectively. With now 3 rounds since Lancia had a win, Fiorio was banking on the narrow tarmac streets of Corsica to be their slingshot back into the run for the title. But not only does Fiorio want to win, but he also wants the German rivals to gain as few points as possible. And so no less than 4 official O37s plus 1 semi-official O37 are roared into life for the Tour de Corse with the hopes of taking as many top spots as possible. But Audi had their own surprise for the event. Taking advantage of the looser Group B rules, the team presented an evolution of the A1 variant that they had been racing, the A2, which has almost 400 horsepower and an astounding weight loss of over 100 kilograms. While Audi had 3 Quattros lined up for the event, however, Bernard Darniche, their tarmac specialist, is injured during the recce, hurting their chances severely. This is without considering that the Corsican streets are at odds with the tremendous understeer of the Quattros, a problem that the Germans were never really able to solve with it. Instead, the characteristics of the rally go hand in hand with the lighter and more nimble O37s. And the result? The Lancias absolutely dominate. The situation worsened further for Audi when in the last leg, Mikkola, pushing his Quattro to the limit to attempt to wrangle 4th place, crashes and retires his car. Not long after, the turbocharged 5-cylinder of Mouton's Quattro exhales its last breath, also being retired. It ends up being poker for Lancia, who take 1, 2, 3 and 4, with Markku Alén being the first Scandinavian driver ever to win at the Tour de Corse. But this high doesn't last for long. The next 4 rounds on the calendar are entirely on gravel and dirt. How on earth could Lancia hope to battle with Audi now? The first of these events are the dusty mountain tracks of the Acropolis Rally, over 800 kilometers of gravel, rocks and crushed stones. A very tough round where only 36 of the 119 entries would see the finish line. Though very quickly things began to look up. On the very first special stage, Audi would lose one of their cars when Mouton's Quattro rolls and goes off the road. Still, Mikkola is able to pick up an early lead for Audi, but things go south for the German team from here. Despite the Quattro being the clearly better car for the job here, the German mechanics simply aren't at their usual unbeatable efficiency. Halfway through the event, after refilling Blomqvist's Quattro, the fuel filler cap is not closed properly, leading to fuel being leaked onto the hot exhaust pipe, almost causing a fire, which obviously slowed him down considerably. Flying Finn Mikkola then loses his lead when his boot lid suddenly springs up, and after that too isn't fastened shut properly. This leads to the radiator oil, which is mounted very close by, completely emptying, and Mikkola is forced to retire. And, against all odds, Lancia is able to pick up a 1-2. Somehow, despite an incredibly shaky first half to the season, Lancia is leading the Constructors' Championship. Audi is being caught rather unprepared for this fierce competition from Lancia, and decides to enter a third Quattro for Blomqvist at the last minute for the next rally, which is down in New Zealand. And as always, it's not a straight line to the finish. Mikkola's Audi suffers numerous problems, putting him out of the running, and Attilio Bettega, racing for Lancia, would encounter a herd of cows on the road, and unfortunately hits one. However, Audi's late call-up of Blomqvist is the main bone of contention this round. Lancia protests about it, and after much controversy at the end of the first leg, the Swedish driver is excluded while in second place. This leaves 2 drivers with a good shot at winning the event, Mouton in the Quattro and Röhrl in the O37. Mouton is able to build herself a large lead over second and seems to be taking control of the race. While her first victory of the season seems to be certain, on the last day, yet again for the French driver, the 5-cylinder engine of her Audi goes out with a bang, quite literally. This leaves Lancia to take another unforeseen win thanks to Röhrl, with Bettega claiming third and Timo Salonen claiming second in the Nissan 240 RS. However, it would seem that Audi's string of bad luck in the previous rounds has finally come to an end, as nothing was able to bring the German team down in the next round at Argentina. And just like Sweden, Audi was able to enforce another steamrolling, yet again with the first 4 positions in their possession. Finland, by contrast, would not see a good start for Audi. A problem with his differential after only 100 metres from the start forces Mikkola to recover from 143rd position. Still, the Flying Finn refuses to give up, and with help from Blomqvist, earn Audi the 1-2, with Alén being relegated to 3rd. Röhrl famously refused to race the 1000 Lakes due to a dislike of the frequent jumps. Lancia's comfortable lead is now reduced to just 2 points over Audi. Fortunately for Lancia though, the streak of entirely gravel events is over, and round 10 brings the competition to Rally San Remo, a mixed surface event with a sizable chunk on tarmac. The rally was to start on the tarmac streets of Liguria, then transition into a long gravel stretch in Tuscany before returning to the tarmac Liguria for the finale. And despite it not being the last event of the season, San Remo certainly felt like a climax, a win required for championship victory with the frontrunners being so closely matched. For their home rally, Lancia goes all in and enrolls 3 official cars plus several semi-official cars, and Audi responds with 4 at the start line. This was going to be a spectacular race. Like Portugal, the road segments were going to be key for Lancia to build their lead, while hopefully not losing too much ground over the gravel. And naturally, seeing an opportunity, Fiorio has a surprise for Italy: sweeper trucks, intended to clean the dusty routes of Tuscany, though in the end this trick wouldn't see the immense successes that was seen in Monte Carlo. Even so, after the first special stage, which was entirely on tarmac, with some help from a few problems in the Quattros, we find no less than 7 Lancias in the top positions. A better start than Fiorio's team could have ever predicted, but now it was on to the gravel. Blomqvist quickly proves the Quattro's superiority here, winning 10 stages in a row, but the 037s of Alén and Röhrl score times not too far off the Germans, allowing the Lancias to win some time on the gravel. Audi is unable to take the lead. In fact, these unpredictable times on the gravel by Lancia caused the Germans to begin to doubt the legitimacy of the 037's prowess. For this reason, Roland Gumpert, the Audi team leader, actually verified directly with the Italian team whether Lancia had converted the 037 to 4-wheel drive, but no, they were still rear-wheel drive. The incredible times were attributed only to the outstanding driving from the Lancia team. Again, Mikkola pushes his Quattro to the limit to try and fight the victory. Despite having a notably fiery passion this round, the only thing that ended in flames would be his Quattro. With the Finn out and Mouton's Quattro way off pace due to technical problems, Audi's only hope is Blomqvist, who is currently sat in second behind Alén, but the tarmac stages make a quick return, and Blomqvist is going to have to go beyond the limit to beat the 037 at this stage. Unfortunately for him, his efforts do not pan out, and his event ends after running into a rock. The Italian team is left with an open road and no competition, and obtains a historic podium control over the finish line. This result was an immense achievement for Lancia, not only for their victory at their home rally, but mathematically they were now the Constructors' Champions of the 1983 season, 2 rounds in advance, marking their 4th such win. No matter how highly Audi placed in the following rounds, Lancia had cemented themselves as the David that beat Goliath. Of course, the season doesn't end there, as the Drivers' Championship is still up for contention. Both Röhrl and Alén were in close contention for the title along with Audi's Mikkola. However, being that Lancia had already secured their championship victory prior to the final round, they decided not to race in the final 2 events. In the end, Mikkola, with 2 second places in the Côte d'Ivoire and the RAC rally, secures himself the driver's crown. Though the fact that Röhrl raced barely half of the season and still managed to claim second, it's a truly incredible feat. It's easy to see why this is considered one of the greatest seasons of motorsport, full stop. Lancia was able to win out against Audi's technological superiority, thanks to the combination of an extremely well balanced 2-wheel drive monster and an incredibly talented duo of drivers, one of which was part-time. The story of the 1983 season also comes with a lesson. It makes us realise that while the difficulties may seem insurmountable at first sight, it can be overcome with some ingenuity, a great deal of preparation, and most importantly, passion.
Hey everyone, the Rubes here. That is the first time that I appear on my channel, but I think it's the right occasion. I would again to thank Cesare Fiorio, Mattia from F1 Legends, Jacko Motors and all the other collaborators that believe in this project and worked with me over months to assure you some quality content. And I hope you appreciate it. That is where the video ends. Thank you for watching.